LOGOS against the forces of the occult. I'm trying to get to Boston mid-March to speak at the Free Software Foundation's annual convention, Libra Planet 2023. We must be in control of our computers, not vice versa. I'm going to be bringing lots of McLuhan talk and history of information capture, data studies from before and through the history of early cybernetics right up to the present day. That's what my talk is on, but I need money to get there. I got a few weeks. More at the end of this video, but you can help at concernednetizen.com, link below. Last year, I decided that making internet videos on McLuhan would be counterproductive. His books and his public speeches, they're like poetry. You can't just summarize them, abstract from them. It kills them dead. It results in theories or philosophies or concepts like every other thinker he's counteracting or undercutting or, to be honest, running circles around. Because when you're reading McLuhan, you're reading what he's reading. You're not reading him, per se. McLuhan scholarship doesn't catch hold today, it doesn't get big, because so many secondary sources, all these summaries and whatnot, they're distracting from the deep, lingering, thorough engagement with two levels of primary sources. First one, his books and lectures. The second one, the many, many books and articles and subjects for analysis that he read to write his books, to make his lectures. Most of my time studying McLuhan is actually studying the latter. It's cross-disciplinary. It's ridiculous. So, in this video format, nothing made on McLuhan's content or his message. I didn't feel like it could get across what was really of value to a new crowd. The way into McLuhan is commitment to reading McLuhan directly, and then reading what he's reading. So, I stopped making videos. I just doubled down on reading and writing privately. Well, this changes now. I've realized I can frame where it is McLuhan can enter the larger discourse. I can inform readers of McLuhan towards those ends, help them know what they're looking for when they start his stuff, help them find where to start. I can encourage long-term commitments to this rewarding mission to those viewers who would undertake it. I've been at it for like 5 years now myself in a very dedicated sense. It's totally worth it. It's totally worth it. Keep watching this video, even if you don't think you're going to go pick up a pile of books on my say-so. Like, I might change your mind, but I might at least get you asking questions, feeling curious about what I'm talking about. There are no concepts in McLuhan's books that I'd like to explain right now, but I think I can paint some of his intentions, approaches, and influence, inspirations, historical context, and applications. Let's get started and you'll see what I mean. McLuhan's media theory is a demystification of what might variously be called mysticism or occultism, or in a very, very idiosyncratic sense of the term, Gnosticism. Like, this is what Mircea Eliade talks about as religion, which is why, in the Gutenberg Galaxy, McLuhan rags on Eliade so hard. Mere psychological processes, which are conditioned by environmental factors, aren't religious. They can be explained in material terms. It's just art. Those who studied such traditions and used them to create and shape the perceptions of others, these were artists to McLuhan's. Let's see how this art criticism approach led to McLuhan's awareness to how these traditions were used in art. I gotta start early here. McLuhan's PhD at Cambridge, he's got his PhD in like 1942. It was in English. He studied literary criticism, as it was before, on one hand, semiotics, structuralism, French theory, criticism of that sort, and, on the other hand, archetypal theory and narratives and everything's a story and social constructionism, and on the other hand, right? He was studying English literary studies before those schools got going. McLuhan's doctoral thesis was ultimately turned out to be an analysis of logos, speech, or the word, like capital W, word, and how that changed over 2,500 years of Western history, from the axial age before Socrates straight up through Plato and Aristotle and the Stoics, the classical rhetors like Cicero, Seneca, and to medieval exegetical works like the patristics and the scholastics, and then to the Neoplatonists and alchemists and Hermetic thinkers of the Renaissance, who were retrieving axial and classical period in new translations and new fangled books. He had to study all of this until he could get to the subject his thesis was actually about. Its ostensible subject. His thesis, when he started it, was supposed to be a localized study of a single writerly feud in the 16th century. When he started his thesis, as he dug in, he found that all the scholarship about the era he was reading didn't match the facts or explain the primary texts from that time that he was reading. All the secondary sources sucked. Secondary sources. So he had to reverse engineer for himself the cultural reasons for the feud, the contexts, what people believed at the time, the origins of the dispute, the larger education system, what they were taught. In a few years of this study, his thesis blossomed into this massive longitudinal 2 millennia analysis of grammar, rhetoric, and dialectic, comprising the classical trivium. So that's his start. That's how he gets his doctorate. Becomes a university teacher. As a scholar and professor throughout the 1940s, he paid particular attention to the French origins of the techniques of T.S. Eliot, the first of the English modern poets. There's a great essay where he burns through like 11 books on Eliot, and none of them know what he knows about how Eliot learned to use language that way. Right? It's brutal. It just tears them apart. McLuhan does, I mean. So the discontinuous, elusive, aphoristic style of Eliot, more Senecan than Ciceronian, came to define the era after Eliot's first poem, The Love Song of J. Alfred Prufrock, was published in 1912. So the point of all this for us here now is that McLuhan took language apart and put it back together over and over and over again, and saw how it was taught, saw how it was studied meticulously. He was reinventing and refining the language in an elaboration which ultimately culminated in his lifelong deep study of James Joyce's Finnegan's Wake. Go crack that one open. It wasn't until the early 50s, shortly after the release of his first book, The Mechanical Bride, that McLuhan woke up to some perception of the occult traditions, rituals, initiation within the contemporary art world, both art itself and art criticism, popular art and highbrow art alike. Modern artists, like the modern artists that McLuhan had been teaching and analyzing in his classroom for years, he taught them as having reverse engineered the stages of apprehension, the stages of their own psychological perception of the world. And these artists were able to play back those stages in their art to the beholder in order to inspire the beholder. Right? The impetus and the inspiration and the techniques of this artistic practice, he suddenly realized, was the attempt at the recreation of ancient initiatory cult rituals, like the Eleusinian mysteries, like occult, pagan stuff, right? And, as he's trying to figure this out, he was just using the catch-all phrase Gnosticism, as he understood it and developed the idea in letters back and forth with Eric Voegelin. All these techniques, these art techniques that had become ritual, or which had been inspired by ritual, rather, they depended on the exacerbation, cultivation, and exploitation of an innate mind-body dualism, a duality, or a dissociation of sensibility. That's what T.S. Eliot called it in an essay he did on a book of poetry about the metaphysical poets. Mind-body split. The Gnostic subject, or the mind, the spirit of the Gnostics, the soul of the Gnostic subject, sought escape from this fallen world and a return back to their true home from which they had fallen, an escape from the prison of their body. McLuhan's work thereafter would entail strategies for addressing and undermining and ameliorating this particular mind-body split, undercutting the efficacy and effect of those artistic strategies which exploited it. This was spiritual warfare. We're going to look at the next two types. We're going to look at two types of Gnosticism as McLuhan was elaborating them within the next video, which you will be able to watch immediately after this one because they're both going up tonight. That's right. It's 2 for 1 night. And you know why it's 2 for 1 night? Because I need to get to Boston, Massachusetts in like 2.5 weeks. And I need to get a hotel room because I'm going to Libra Planets 2023, where we will be talking about free software, understanding our computers, controlling our computers, wresting power back from proprietary software, big tech corporations which are trying to control you through the machine. In order to do that, I need funding. I need to get there. I need to stay there. I need to get around. Head to concerneditizen.com. Look in the description below this video for links and consider, please, helping me out in this endeavor of mine. Stay tuned for the next video.